All right, Texans starting to make changes. DeMeco Ryans spoke on it yesterday. He said, he needed to take some time to make some staffing changes. We can kind of see the initial moving parts of that, and it has Cody kind of thinking this O-line stuff might be worse than we thought.
So this is, look, it was bad this year. We all watched it. I don't need to tell you all the stats for you to know that their offensive line was bad, but I'm going to fill you in on a few of them anyway. 5th worst pressure percentage amongst quarterbacks. They allowed the 3rd most sacks in football. They allowed the 7th most quarterback pressures overall. Like, it was really bad. It was really bad. And they did not face like a large amount of elite defenses. Like, if you just had a murderer's row of defenses that were really good at getting after the quarterback, it'd be a little bit more understandable, but they were really bad. And they've got to adjust and change some things. But over the course of the season, Landry, what was one of the most easy things to point to and most prevailing sentiments that people wanted, which was fire the O-line coach, show some sort of care, some sort of public display that you are not okay with how this offensive line situation is going. Fire the O-line coach. That was what a lot of people were saying. Heck, I was even saying it. Okay. And then Aaron Wilson's report, which Chris Strausser's not expected to return. That's the report. I think everybody understood that, knew that. But Aaron added in the little detail that Chris Strausser, the offensive line coach, had to be convinced to come back for the 2024 season. He contemplated retirement last offseason. How in the hell do you have to convince a coach to stick around and then keep him throughout the course of the entire season? What are they doing? And why did they trip over themselves to keep a guy who wanted to quit? That makes it even worse that we watched this offensive line debacle all season long. That when I read that, I was like, wait, hold on. They had to convince him to come back? He was trying to retire? Like, how do they go through a whole season with a coach that not only hadn't previously coached this system before he got here, but also wanted to bail after 1 year? How do they come back and make that guy the offensive line coach for a second season? It's not like they were awesome last year.
They were better. I'm not as fired up about this as you. I'm not trying to act above. I'm not in the O-line coach business. Like, I don't know, I'm not in the offensive line coach, fire the offensive line coach. I'm not in the baseball, fire the hitting coach when the team's sucking business. So I've invested all my efforts into talking about offensive line coaches with the Texans, going all the way back to Bill O'Brien in everyone's sense. So I get that you're fired up about it. I really don't care. My thing with the Texans and the offensive line.
Okay, well, here's why it matters. Here's why it does matter, I think. Okay, and I know you don't care, but here's why it matters. They had 4 young guys in that offensive line room that need to get better. They had Kenyon Green, they had Juice Scruggs, they had Jarrett Patterson, they had Blake Fisher. They had 4 young guys that need to get better. And this coach barely wanted to coach. They had to convince him, and then they stunk.
But didn't the Patriots have to convince their offensive line coach like multiple times to not retire? I know
he was the best offensive line coach in football. You don't want him to retire.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, so, but he came in and did a good job. The problem is maybe that he's a bad offensive line coach. Maybe that they don't have good offensive linemen. My thing with the Texans is they don't do anything. I don't trust them in any area of the offensive line. I don't trust them to evaluate offensive linemen. I don't trust them to set lineups. I don't trust them to put offensive linemen in positions to succeed. I don't trust them to bench guys at the right time. I don't trust them to not put incapable backups in or previous starters in at the right time. So that's my bigger issue. Like, I've seen coaches, players get talked out of retirement and perform at a decent level. I think the reality might be just that he sucks. Like, that's more of the reality of it than like getting fired up about having to do that. Cause I saw the Patriots offensive line coach had to be convinced that every freaking time. So he just sucks, and they suck at every area of the offensive line. That's my bigger issue.
My point is he wasn't good enough to convince to come back. They should have moved on, got something different going. Got somebody with experience coaching this team, coaching this system.
I think the bigger issue was not his coaching. I think the bigger issue is that this offensive line that they thought was going to be good when fully healthy is worse than the makeshift offensive line that they put together last year. And I think we kind of saw a little bit of that before the playoffs. For whatever reason, Shaq Mason got thrown right back into the lineup, even though you were already seeing previous improvements. So for me, I think if you would have had last year's offensive line, like let's say you had George Fant and whoever else, I think it might have been a better offensive line. For me, the bigger issue was the offensive line that they believed in, the offensive line that they invested in, the offensive line that they insisted was going to be good was the issue. That's my problem. But they suck at every area of offensive line. I don't trust them for anything.
No, maybe they'd be better if the coach was better.
Well, maybe they'd be better if the players were better. Like there's a lot.
Obviously, they'd be better if the players were better. But I think that both of these things can matter. Like they cannot have good enough offensive linemen, and the coach can also not be any good.
Yeah, there's nothing they don't do anything good at the offensive line. That's a 100% fact, no doubt.
And then to add to the story, Aaron reports that the guy that's in consideration to take over for Strausser is the assistant offensive line coach, which is pathetic. Because if he wasn't good enough to take over for the guy last year when you had to convince him to stay, he's guilty by association letting all this bad stuff happen. Like he wasn't good enough for us to fire the guy and promote him. So now he's going to get the crack at the job.
Well, did you think Chris Strausser needed to be fired last year? I thought you liked him.
I'm talking about in the year. I'm talking about in the season.
Yeah, but you liked it. You liked him.
Well, what I'm saying is,
but you wanted him back, right?
But hold on. If they like this guy enough to give him the job after Strausser sucks for a year, why'd they convince Strausser to come back last year? Why not just give that guy the job?
Because they thought Strausser did a good job last year. They thought that with all the backups and all the
Okay. Next question would be, if they thought highly of this guy, why not fire Strausser in the middle of the year and give this guy the opportunity? Incremental improvement would have made this team better.
Because they don't know anything about offensive line. But last year,
this goes to a bigger. This goes
fire Chris Strausser after last year.
This goes again. I'm not talking about firing Chris Strausser last year. I'm talking about firing him this year. And I'm talking about if this guy who is the assistant offensive line coach is worthy of the job, why convince the old guy to stick around? Give the young guy the job. So it's and then why stick with the old guy in the middle of the year when the team stinks at the offensive line, and you can't change the 5 offensive linemen, but you can at least change the voice in the room. And then this goes to a bigger systemic problem with potentially the offensive side of the ball. They may not make enough changes to get better on offense. That's the bigger, scarier part of this. The offensive line is a very small symptom of a bigger issue that they may have on offense.
Yes, I agree. I agree with all that. They have a offense. This is a pivotal point of the DeMeco Ryans, Nick Caserio era for how they handle offense and what exactly they do. I don't disagree with that. I just don't begging Chris Strausser to come back after last year. I don't think is crazy. They decided to run it with this offensive line and see what it looked like. I mean, with what you had invested, you needed to. Obviously, they were wrong, but you were worked up over them begging him to come back. I wasn't. That doesn't really make me think any less of him. It doesn't make me feel like it's worse.
Okay.
On the super chat, Jacob says, does the Tunsil, Howard, Patterson juice and Fisher O-line combo have potential with better coaching, or is this a burn the whole thing down situation? Thank you and be safe. Those guys suck. They're terrible. Laramie Tunsil doesn't Laramie Tunsil.
Hold on, you don't know that. You can't say about Fisher yet.
I'm saying that 5 sucks. That starting 5 sucks. That should not be the starting 5. I think Fisher can be good. But this starting 5, and you can put Tunsil on your line too, but everything else in the middle there, we don't know. But that 5, no, you don't run it back with that 5. No chance. No, thank you. Tunsil's the guy who scores 7 and loses every pickup game. He doesn't make anyone else better. There's no if you're following Tunsil's lead, you're just handling business. You're not, you can't function. Not everyone has the talent to function like Laramie Tunsil. If you follow Joe Mixon and Nico Collins' lead and do what they do, then you're probably going to be a better player. If you do everything that Tunsil does and handle yourself like Tunsil, you're not going to become a better player. He's the guy in the pickup game who scores 7 and loses 12-7 every game. That's what he is. And tells everyone he scores 7. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
what and he doesn't hold those other 4 guys to the same standard that he seems to hold himself to.
Yeah, and I'm gonna block my guy. There's no contagious intangibles from him. But no, I don't think all 5 of these guys, you get rid of all 5.
They have to go get somebody.
Keep 3 or 4, but that 5, no. Shaq Mason should not step on the football field again for the Texans.
They have to go get somebody outside the building that is going to be a starter in one of the spots on the offensive line. Like somebody who's not on the team in the building right now has to be a starter on this team next year on the offensive line. It could be at one of the guard spots. It could be at the center spot. It could be at left tackle because you made a change there. It could be where, but they have to have somebody who's not in the building right now start on that offensive line. I don't care if it's a free agent. I don't care if it's a high draft pick, which is scarier than a free agent. Like somebody who's not in the building has to start.
I don't know what this means. John says, I wanted to dig into this. Focus on the upgrades you can afford and achieve. Replacing a dog with ticks for a dog with fleas is not forward thinking. I don't
want them to go get sucky offensive linemen.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I'm sure it sounded good when you press send though. So firing the O-line coaches, this does not satisfy you, or is this what you want to do?
It's the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum. Like both those guys should be gone. They got to get a new offensive line room from a coaching standpoint, and they got to get new players. So like if there is, like, you realize how bad it could be if they keep Bobby Slowick, they promote the assistant offensive line coach to the offensive line coach, and like let's say they add like one senior offensive, like that's it. That's going to be it for the offense. Like that's not good enough. That's not enough. That's not going to make them better.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like the offensive line coach. I don't know. I remember our bit at the start of the season, I think at camp, was when they made the assistants available, you wanted to go talk to Chris Strausser. I was like, I don't care about Chris Strausser. It might have been last year.
That was last
year.
Year.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't care about Chris Strausser. Like, I don't know, like, offensive line coach. I don't know. Like, if they fire the offensive line coach, I'm not satisfied with that. You still have the same system. It's still under the same system. I don't trust anything they do on the offensive line. When they draft an offensive lineman, I'm going to immediately look at it skeptically and not trust them. When they sign an offensive lineman, I'm going to immediately look at it skeptically and not trust them. When they sign a defensive lineman, I'm going to immediately think they know what the hell they're doing and that's going to work out. That's where the Texans are right now with me when it comes to how they do things. If they sign a linebacker or a corner, I'm going to say, damn, they really know what they're doing. But when it comes to the offensive line, when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, serious trust issues.
Yeah, I mean, look, the conversation about the offensive line coach is not this fixes everything. The conversation is this is the start of getting things fixed on a serious level for the offense. That's what I think it is.
Black Eighth Element says a good coach can change technique. The problem with this O-line is on them. They have no heart.
Yeah, if I thought the main issue was they don't know where to put their hands when they're blocking, like, then I think Landry would be more on board with the coaching thing. But the give a shit meter is pretty low for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you see these other offensive linemen, they're immediately pushing the running backs as soon as they're like a yard apart. The quarterback gets hit. They're immediately in the opposing D-line's face. There's just a little bit more nasty. This is just not. It's not a very nasty.
Like they keep blocking. They don't throw their hands up like a timer went off.
Since it is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots, with you. We're gonna put Cody on the spot in a second. Be sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms, all of that type of stuff. Subscribe to the Locker Room. Subscribe to Cody's channel. And since Cody is in the offensive line coach business, and this is
you don't care. We can just move past this.
This is Cody Stoots' wheelhouse right here. This is it.
You don't care. Let's just move on.
Let's get Cody's offensive line coach pick.
Zach Cromer. He's the assistant offensive line coach for the LA Rams. He's been the assistant O-line coach for the Rams for 8 years. Okay. And obviously you can't get somebody else's head offensive line coach. So you got to get an assistant offensive line coach. He's been the O-line coach for the Rams for 8 years. So McVay trusts him. There's probably some things that he's picked up from Sean McVay. And it just so happens his dad is one of the most successful offensive line coaches in all of football, Aaron Cromer. Okay. So Zach Cromer, Rams assistant offensive line coach. He should be the next O-line coach for the Texans. They'll be better next year with him as the O-line coach.
That's a good suggestion by you. I like that.
You've already forgot his name.
The Rams assistant O-line coach.
Yeah, you already forgot his name.
No, I know who you're talking about. Just the O-line coach to me, it's like deflection, you know? There's like a bigger problem, but I get it.
It's a fever for the disease that they have on offense. Like it's a symptom to the bigger issue that they have.
The symptom is the entire offensive scheme, the entire offensive system, and the evaluation.
Yeah, that's a multi-year fix. Like I'm trying to fix some stuff in 2025.
It can be an immediate fix if you get rid of Bobby Slowick and you bring someone else in. It can be immediate.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're still gonna have four offensive linemen, 3 from last year that aren't very good.
So there it is. Say his name again for the peeps.
Zach Cromer.
Zach Cromer.
Z-A-K.
Z-A-K.
Yeah.
C-R-O-M-E-R?
No, K-R-O-M-E-R.
K-R-O-M-E-R. That is the offensive line coach that the Texans must get.
Zach Cromer.
Why are you so mad at me for not caring about the offensive line coach? This is not a bit. We have this conversation behind the scenes.
Mad.
I'm bringing the people like what we talk about behind the scenes.
It's fine. You don't have to be passionate about what I'm passionate about.
I'm not in on the offensive line coach as much as you.
I just think it's a bigger issue with how they operate.
You were the biggest. You were the biggest.
Yeah, well, he's not good. He's not good.
You were his biggest fan.
My opinions can change. Like I'm supposed to be stuck to the Chris Strasser thing.
You loved him.
Yeah, because he had a lot of success in Indianapolis.
Coaching polo in the team shop, and now all of a sudden
he had a lot of success in Indianapolis, and then they sucked this year. So I wanted him fired.
So they're idiots for trying to bring back Chris Strasser, the guy that you love.
Yes, because when someone tries to retire, they should leave. Because you don't want people to linger at a job that they may not be good at or that they don't want to do. You're the king of people not lingering around when they should have retired. I don't know how this doesn't infuriate you that they had to convince a guy to coach again and then he had a bad season.
What was the guy's name? Dante Starnecchia? Was that his name? Did I say it right? Yeah. How many times did the Patriots have to
bench him? He was good. That's my point. He was good. Strasser was fined last year, and he only coached this system 1 year. You could have upgraded. You could have done something different, and maybe the team is still playing.
So but I'm trying to help you as a friend to not go all in on offensive line coaches, because that's why last year with Strasser, I was like, why do you want to interview Chris Strasser?
The O-line spot. I'm sorry. Like, the coaching staff matters. Like, what are we sitting here talking about? The coaching staff doesn't matter. The coaching staff matters.
I know the coaching staff matters.
Well, why are you sitting here telling me the guy doesn't matter?
The O-line coach? Come on. Like, we're focused on the O-line coach.
Because he wasn't good this year, and they convinced him to come back when they didn't have to, and they could have done something better.
But I thought he did a good job last year.
I don't
like they didn't
do a good job. He did a fine job, and then he wanted to retire.
But we got to admit, like, he's the easy target right now. Chris Strasser did a good job last year.
I would not call it a good job.
Like, they brought back Bobby Slowick this year. Bobby Slowick did a good job last year, right? We thought he did a good job.
No, Bobby was much better at his job last year than Strasser was at his job last year.
I'm just saying I think it's unfair to accuse them of malpractice for bringing back a guy, Chris Strasser, who we thought did a good job.
But again,
like it's one thing to
think he did a good job.
Someone who did an okay job, like Dalton Schultz or Titus Howard. I thought Strasser did an okay job last year. He did all right.
That's okay. I agree with you. But when he wanted to retire, you should have let him retire and tried to improve.
I wouldn't call it a good job last year. Okay, I don't know. I thought that they had a revolving door of offensive linemen, and I thought they did an okay job. I thought they did an okay job with a revolving door of offensive linemen. Didn't they win? They won a game when they had 4 of 5 guys out. I thought they did an okay job last year at O-line. That's what I thought.
No one is disagreeing with you.
But you're criticizing them for bringing him back.
No, I'm not. I'm criticizing them for not taking an opportunity to upgrade when he wanted to leave. And then he had a bad season.
Like Dante Starnecchia?
I'm going around in circles and you just don't listen. Dante Scarnecchio is one of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. Bill Belichick should have been praying every season that he comes back. Chris Strausser was okay. Like, again, it's a bigger thing. If they want to settle in mediocrity, then they will not be good enough to go past the divisional round. They'll win the AFC South, which is shitty, every year, and then they'll smash their head right into the divisional round every time. Again, this is not just about the offensive line coach. It's about the greater operation of how they put together the offensive staff.
And that's my point. That's my point.
DeMeco can make up for stuff on the defensive side. He can't make up for it on the offensive side.
That's my point. Is they can have the best offensive line coach of all time, but as long as the offense functions like this, it doesn't matter. That's why I don't care about the offensive line coach. I've seen 5 different offensive line coaches here. Mike Devlin was a joke. Oh my God. This was the light that I saw. Like we're both here. Like I'm not being a pain with Cody to be a pain with Cody. This is what's happened with the Texans. I've followed this organization for as close as anyone, spent probably 25, 30, 40, 50% of my dialogue talking about the Texans, and they have for a long time, they've functioned like a shitty offense. I complained about Mike Devlin. What did Mike Devlin do this year? Mike Devlin coached the Chargers offensive line, and they had a very good year. They had an excellent year, okay? I bitched about Mike Devlin. He obviously wasn't that bad. So I think the problem is you're getting fired up about an offensive line coach. I don't dislike your suggestion. I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is if what we're going to do is we're going to talk about an offensive line coach and they're going to continue to do what they've done with Bobby Slowick, it doesn't matter. And the offensive line is going to look bad. That's the point. That's my point with this offensive line thing.
We're saying the same thing.
But we need to go up to where Bobby is. That's what the problem is.
I just literally had a conversation with you about settling for mediocrity. And then we talked about, my God, they might keep Bobby Slowick and settle for mediocrity. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah, we agree on that.
You're diagnosing it in a different way.
Different ways. Who knows? Joe Mixon has a tease about Nick Caserio. What is Joe Mixon teasing? Let's hear from Joe Mixon yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
So we got asked about, hey, you go to the Pro Bowl, you recruit some guys. And so this was the tail end of his answer about that.
Look forward to that recruiting aspect, having fans, very excited and engaged to obviously who we're basically additions to the team. And I know for a fact that Nick got something cooked up right now. So definitely all excited for it, and fireworks will be here real soon.
I know Nick's got something cooked up, and fireworks will be here real soon. Is Mixon just saying that, or does he know something?
I think that's wishful thinking, I would say, right? I would say that's wishful thinking. I don't know that there's anything like that. I don't even know that Nick Caserio knows what he's going to do yet. I think they probably have an idea. I think they're probably going to intensify their meetings, but I don't know that Nick even has an idea of what he's going to do. I think he has an idea of where he wants to focus, but I don't know. I don't think that he knows exactly what he's going to do.
It just doesn't seem to me like something that Joe Mixon would like. Joe Mixon doesn't need to sell false hope to the fans about a player addition. Like that doesn't seem like something that he would just feel like he has to do without knowing something.
What would it be then? Because he's talking about the Pro Bowl. Like, what would it be?
It's got to be something on offense. Because I mean, why would Joe Mixon get excited about something on defense?
I mean, they don't. If they're trying to make a splash on defense, then this is worse than we thought. Like they can coach up on defense. They have more talent on defense. You're bringing back one of the most elite corner duos in the league already. You're bringing back one of the best edge duos in the league. You're getting Petrie and Jimmy Ward back at the nickel. You have linebackers that you feel pretty good about. You probably don't feel good about one safety. Like, if they watch this season and they decide, all right, we really need to make a splash on defense, then this is an even more one-sided, dense type of function than we already think it is, and we already think it's a pretty one-sided, dense organization.
Yeah, that's why I don't think Joe Mixon, if he knew something, would be excited about a defensive addition. Like there's not really an actual defensive addition that would get me excited. Like, I mean, unless Aaron Donald came out of retirement and you got him somehow. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, I'll sign up for that. But I just like, does Joe say that knowing that, like, Caserio doesn't decide who the coaches are. So that's DeMeco. Like, he's talking about Caserio. But also, I can't figure out why Nick Caserio would say anything to Joe Mixon. Like, you have an exit interview with Joe, and you're like, hey, Joe, we're going to get T. Higgins. And he's like, what way?
Who do you think's in charge of the offense?
You mean adding players or like
both?
What?
Like both. Like how much say so do you think Caserio has like in the offense and DeMeco? I'm asking the question because I would think that they have final say, final write-off, but they defer to the assessment of the offensive staff led by Bobby Slowick. Okay, so you think, and we kind of asked like a version of this question yesterday, but like, do you think that Nick Caserio say so in the offense? Because yesterday we talked about this from a coaching standpoint, like the process of Shaq Mason getting in the lineup. We're trying to get to the bottom of this, and we're gonna yell at each other all offseason. Like that's just kind of, I mean, it's a frustrating process. But like from right now on January 21st, 2025, where we're kind of fully transitioned into off-season mode, do you think Nick Caserio is more, less, or the same aggressive when it comes to trying to get guys in there offensively? Like get what he wants in there. Do you think he's more or less aggressive? Like, do you think he was my guess on what they're going to do, you mean? Like, I think he'll be as aggressive as the limitations that they have to work with, because they had far less limitations last year. No, when I say aggressive, I'm talking about like as far as him trying to get done what he wants, because we know that they work together. We know that Nick Caserio was learning a new offensive system after being in the Patriot system for 25 years. He was on the headset. Like, he probably, like, Nick Caserio could close his eyes and probably like write every play in that Patriot system, like backwards, forwards, upside down, all that. And he learned this new system. Like, let's say Nick Caserio wants player A and DeMeco Ryans wants player B. How that conversation goes and where they get, like, as far as how aggressive Nick Caserio is in trying to get things done his way. Do you think it's increased or decreased this year? I would tell you that it's increased, because they have to, like, I feel like my understanding of how they operate, and this is how they should operate, because DeMeco Ryans spends, June through January coaching the team, worrying about the roster that they have. But like Nick Caserio and his staff, they go find the players. They submit the players to the coaching staff. And then it's like, yeah, we like him. Let's get him if we can get him. No, we don't like him. No, I don't really see it. Okay, we're going to comb through it. And so, like, if Nick Caserio liked the guy and DeMeco Ryans didn't like a guy, they're not getting the guy, because DeMeco Ryans has final say. What if so you're saying that if DeMeco likes a guy and Caserio doesn't, then they get the guy? So it's DeMeco's final word?
I would tell you that DeMeco Ryans has full control over this thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. My question is though, like, if that's the case, and I don't think you can absolve Caserio from the offense because he built this offensive line, you know? So it was already there, and this system wasn't in mind when it was built. And a lot of people think that these offensive linemen just aren't really scheme fits. Like, does Caserio, now that he's set back and kind of maybe taken a back seat to DeMeco on the offense, and the offense is as bad as it is, do you think that he like tries to intensify his aggressiveness? I'm not sitting here saying they're going to scream and yell at each other or anything like that, but like, do you think that he intensifies his aggressiveness when it comes to trying to get stuff done? Because I think that would be good. Like, I think if DeMeco is 100% in charge of this offense and this offense is functioning this way, then I think it would be good for someone to be able to push back. And that's what I don't like about Bobby Slowick. Like, I saw the light yesterday when we were on the air, because
that he's a yes man.
No, I think he's an offensive coordinator with a head coach that already calls plays. I think he's kind of like a Matt Burke. I think he's a good resource, but I don't think he's like when a coach has like a skill set on one side of the ball, and ideally you want someone who can control the other 50% without having to be handled too much. I don't think Bobby Slowick is that guy. I think if Bobby Slowick wanted to go be offensive coordinator for Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Shane Steichen, any offensive minded, Andy Reid, like if he wanted to do that, although Matt Nagy's kind of a little bit more aggressive than like a Bieniemy was, like if he wanted to do that, I think he could. But as far as like having that much pressure and that much responsibility for a coach who's looked at football one way for 30 years, I just don't think Bobby Slowick is that guy. So if DeMeco is the final word in the offense, and we both agree with that, I don't know that I think that he needs a little bit more pushback. And I think Caserio would be capable of doing that. I think he's smart enough to where in a short time he can get a grasp of the offense and realize what's going on, because he's a smart dude. But I don't know that Bobby Slowick is capable of that. And that's my concern with this whole thing, and my concern with the offensive side of the rock.
That the offensive coordinator's in over his head, so he basically, like, you can't trust him to comb through, go find a gym and say, hey, guys, actually, I know this guy maybe doesn't look that good, but we could get him here and actually turn him into something. Like, I don't trust Bobby Slowick to do that. I do trust Caserio to find a guy like that. Like, hey, guys, like, I know stats don't look like, but turn the tape on. Let me explain to you what I saw. This is how I think this guy can succeed. I do think Caserio is a weapon in that way. He's talked about how he sort of had to marry the way he operates the way DeMeco Ryans operates. And I like that the two guys at the top aren't the same. Like it probably does create some spirited debate and discussion. Now, ultimately,
do you think Nick has enough to go to a spirited debate, or is it just okay, DeMeco?
I think yes, I think Nick can fight for his guys. But I also think that I think DeMeco Ryans does not strike me as close-minded in this process.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's just
like, I think I mean, I can remember talking to him at the annual meetings last year and talking to him about like the draft process. And he was like, yeah, I'm excited to really, dive in on these guys after free agency and give my feedback. So it's not like he walks in and tries to run the draft room and pick guys that he scouted for 3 weeks when other guys have scouted them for 3 months, like the previous head coach did,
Evan says wide receiver in round 1, round 2, left guard, center. Yeah, I don't even think they need to handcuff themselves position wise when it comes to offense. I just think offense. I think one side of the ball, figure it out. Whenever they say best player available, there's always like some middle ground. But I would just kind of lean offense. That's where I would be.
Yeah, there's going to be somebody on offense worth picking it when they selected in the first round.
Yeah, I would agree.
Maybe it's a wide out. Maybe it's a guard. Maybe it's a tight end. God, I hope it's Tyler Warren.
Now you're getting in the wheelhouse. The Mixon backup in priorities. Where is Mixon backup in priorities? Are they just going to run it back? I think this is very important. I think this is something they need to be proactive in. We're getting to the point where running backs kind of wear down. And I just don't. I think asking Joe Mixon to do as much as they asked him to do, I think they need to find someone else that, in ideal world, can be kind of like a 1B, another guy. But they need multiple backs that can make plays. I feel like I've been begging for this for a long, long time.
Man, I would draft two. To be honest with you, I'd draft one early and I'd draft one late. And, obviously you don't know exactly how the board's going to fall, but this is one of the deepest running back classes that we have. And there's a little bit of a positive from last year. It was one of the deepest cornerback classes in recent memory, and they dipped into the deepness of the class and got a nice little gem out of it in Kamari Lassiter. It's one of the deepest running back classes as far as any of these draft evaluators could talk about in a long time. There should be multiple guys in basically every round that are worthy of the selection, and pairing a young guy with a veteran, especially if that young guy needs just a little bit of seasoning, because you don't want to take Joe Mixon off the field. Like, Joe Mixon's still very good, but if you could make Joe Mixon, I mean, the offensive coordinator told us 2 weeks ago they couldn't throw the ball to him because they were worried about his wear and tear. Well, maybe if you had somebody else that could carry the football, you wouldn't worry about the wear and tear, and you could maximize Mixon when you do have him in there. So there's a lot of guys. I mean, we saw Judkins last night. He's phenomenal. He was good at Ole Miss before he got to Ohio State. Then he was really good at Ohio State. Like, Ohio State's a great example. They had Travion Henderson, and they could have just had him and settled with him and made things work with him. And they went out there and got the best running back in the transfer portal and used both of them. And they both were super effective in the longest college football season that these guys have ever played. And they were super effective down to the end. Like, that's a really good job by Ohio State. Who knew they were better at roster building than the Texans?
Well, they kind of got an unlimited cap, and free agency's very favorable to them. But yeah, I feel you. I Must Paneline says, who cares about the backup when they don't touch the field? Yeah, they got to figure something out there. Like, if you don't trust your backup running back to step on the field, then maybe you need a different backup running back. Maybe you need a different philosophy. But they definitely need multiple backs, and some running backs who are like carrying as much of a load as Mixon, they have guys that come in there and kind of make plays. Texans need that. Evan says Scatabo, draft him. He's going to be probably a late day 2, day 3 guy. He's one of those guys that's really good in college. I don't know how good he's going to be in the pros.
I would make him my running back 2, but if he was on my roster as my running back 3, I mean, can't you see him doing something on special teams, like running down, covering kicks, and just being a crazy person?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think about just think about the backup and like the multiple running back situations. Like the Bills were playing for the AFC Championship. They have 2 running backs and their quarterbacks mobile. Like the Eagles, they have Saquon Barkley, their quarterback's mobile, and they still give the ball to Kenneth Gainwell sometimes. Like,
I think he's a Ram.
What? Scatabo?
He's a Ram. He screams Rams day 3.
Oh yeah.
He screams Rams. Just take him with a random 4th rounder or 5th rounder or something like that, and he just sits around.
He's a top 100 guy on a lot of people's boards, and I don't think that's going to. Like, I don't think the draft process is going to bear that out for him. Like, I don't think that's going to work.
We'll see. Who knows? But I mean, it's all going to start with the O-line coach. We go back to where the O-line coach is going to be and what they're going to do on offense. Do you still think Bobby's safe? Have you at all changed when it comes to where Bobby is?
I do not believe that Bobby is 100% safe. You don't go up there and, I mean, think about, like, let's take Podium DeMeco, and maybe it's different for coaches versus players. Kenyon Green goes out there, awful game, terrible. DeMeco goes to the podium. Hey, had some really good plays. You guys should watch that. Okay. Bobby Slowick, bad season. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say bad season as the offense coordinator, right?
I would say it's beyond bad.
Okay. So a very negative season. Hey, Coach, what'd you think about Bobby Slowick this year? I think Bobby showed some growth. Like, that's it. Like, he was out there, go watch the good plays when Kenyon Green was awful and had a single-digit Pro Football Focus blocking rating. And then Bobby has a really bad year, and he's like, yeah, I thought, some growth, some improvement. Like,
Yeah,
that's not good.
Yeah, I don't know how there's been growth. I don't know how you can say that.
He basically gave the "I'm fine" response. When you're in a relationship, hey, what's wrong? I'm fine. You're not fine. He basically gave "I'm fine."
Let's go to Germany. German Texans fan here, new to NFL year 4. Shout out to you. Thanks to my wife. Shout out to your wife. Really appreciate all you two do. I learn so much about the sport every time I tune in. We got you, man. When it comes to the Texans, we got you, brother. We got you when it comes to the everything from the
hopefully
from the
now
draft,
you understand
the line coach.
Hopefully now you understand the importance of the offensive line coach, or you're on Landry's side and it doesn't matter.
I hate offensive line coaches.
That's fine.
I hate them, man.
That's fine.
Not a fun thing. I do like your suggestion though. It will be interesting though if they do just elevate the assistant. That'll
be the first sign that this thing's going in the crapper next year.
Well, it's the first sign that DeMeco's doing what a lot of coaches do, which is kick the can down the road. But at a low level, like this is like the ultimate survival tactic where you buy time for Slowick. This time next year, we'll be talking about Bobby Slowick being fired, and you just kind of kick the can down the road. That's what it kind of feels like, the offensive line coach.
I certainly understand some coaches being risk averse with the situations that they're in. Like, if I take a risk, it backfires, like everybody's getting fired. Like, I understand that. Amongst the people with job security, DeMeco Ryans is near the top. So, like, he could take a risk, make him as like he could hire 3 different offensive coordinators. Like, he hired Bobby. If that didn't work, he hired another guy. Okay, that didn't work. He gets to hire another one.
Yeah, you can ride and die with DeMeco for sure.
So it's I don't understand why there would be like a hesitation to take a risk.
Because he doesn't know
because you're friends with the guy.
Maybe
well, that's when you use that's when Caserio comes in handy. That's what, like, I went through this. I got into a rabbit hole last night when I was writing for Houston football, and I went through the Ravens coaching staff, the Bills coaching staff, the Chargers coaching staff, and the Chiefs coaching staff.
Charlie Hextad's been the Chiefs O-line coach forever.
He's really good. Now, Andy doesn't have as many guys on his staff, like littered throughout his staff. Andy doesn't have as many guys as some of the other ones, but he's also Andy Reid. Matt Nagy was a former head coach who also previously worked with Andy, so he knows how things work. You talked about the offensive line coach. He's been there forever. They've had a special teams coordinator who's been there forever, really good at what he does. But, like, I look at McDermott's staff, former offensive coordinators, former, I think a former head coach or two, one of the best offensive line coaches in all of football. I look at, oh my God, look at the Ravens staff. It's littered with former coordinators and head coaches. And I'm not talking about guys on defense. I'm talking about just guys on offense. Same with the Chargers. A bunch of guys that used to coach offense or be in charge of offense in a bunch of different places. Even Sean Payton's staff. Sean Payton has 2 guys that have been offensive coaches in the NFL for 20 plus years. And I look at the Texans staff and it's like, well, this guy's in his 3rd season in the NFL. And it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Those guys always do good jobs of like developing guys and just building up the pipeline. I remember someone was telling me a story about when he was on the Green Bay staff. And I think it was the one that Andy was on and Gruden and all of them.
So was it Holmgren staff?
Yeah, I want to say Peyton was a coaching intern there, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been. It was Peyton or one of them.
Okay.
I want to make sure it was Peyton. Let me see. Because he's told the story. He's told the story 100 times.
So Sean Payton's first NFL job was with the Eagles in '97.
Okay, it was with the Eagles. Yeah, it was with the Eagles. Yeah, it was with the Eagles when with that '97 staff, whoever the hell was there.
Was that when Gruden was there?
Yeah, but like they were the coaches were drinking coffee or something like that. It was the year that Hasselbeck was drafted. And
hold on, listen to this offensive staff in '97. John Gruden.
Mm-hmm.
He was the offense coordinator. Sean Payton was the quarterback's coach.
Yes.
Bill Callahan was the offensive line coach. And David Shaw was the quality control coach on offense when they only had like one quality control coach. Shaw obviously ended up coaching Stanford back, a few years ago.
Yes. So I guess whenever Matt Hasselbeck was drafted, one of the like snot-nosed dudes was just kind of sitting there, and the big boys, the established dudes, were having a conversation about quarterbacks or whatever. And they asked the kid, like, it was almost like throwing him a bone. It was like, hey, what do you think about these quarterbacks? And he was like, well, I think that Matt Hasselbeck is going to be a first round pick, end up being like one of the better draft picks and blah, blah, blah. But he knew what he was talking about. So it's just kind of like that whole pipeline that went up was just kind of funny.
98 Green Bay staff. Mike Sherman, assistant offensive line tight ends coach. Andy Reid, quarterbacks coach. Mike Holmgren, head coach. Had some dudes over there, man.
Yeah, that was interesting. We'll see how it goes. I mean, right now, this is not really a coaching pipeline. That's the other thing. Last year, you kind of felt like they were starting damn, DeMeco might have the problem that we're not really used to coaches having, where other teams want your guys. And when you saw Gerard getting in the interview, and then you saw
got like 6 interviews.
Yeah, and then you saw Bobby get the interview, then
3 head coach interviews.
Yeah. Then you thought that was the start, but now we're just kind of right back to damn. But it happens, man. Like this is why these head coaches get paid so much. This is where they got to make their decisions. He's got to make his offensive decision, and we'll see how the whole thing goes.
Yeah, I don't want it to sit here. I understand it's not an easy decision to make. Like, I understand, like, there's a lot that weighs on it. It's like, if I fire the offense coordinator, I'm bringing in like a whole new offensive staff. Like, how many coaches do we need to go try to find, and this and that? Like, I understand it's not, but to your point, this is a big thing that he can change that doesn't have any sort of salary cap ramifications. It doesn't have any sort of restrictions on it. Like, you can go change out the way the offense operates and get better, hopefully. And it doesn't cost you draft picks or money on the salary cap to do that. Yeah, Cal McNair's got to write a check to make these guys go away and write a check.
He's willing to do that.
He's never had any problem doing that.
No, he has no problem paying coaches that aren't even coaching here. So that's one of Cal's things.
He was paying what, 2 GMs, 2 coaches at the same time?
Yep.
Who knows what the settlement was for dumbass when he got
Before we get out of here, I think this is only necessary to end this episode of SNL. We got to get the Cody Stoots offensive line coach power rankings, top 5.
The top 5?
Top 5 offensive line coach power rankings with the offensive line expert coach, offensive line coach expert Cody Stoots. We got to get him, man.
You're a jerk. You're a jerk.
I'm just kidding, but I'm assuming that Charlie Heck's dad would be up there.
I think number 1 is Jeff Stoutland. He's the offensive line coach for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Charlie Heck's dad is number 2.
Okay.
And then Aaron Cromer's number 3. And then I guess Mike Devlin's 4 because apparently he had.
Yeah,
he had a great year. Mike
Devlin, baby. I apologize to him. It took a lot from me.
Screw him.
I was once you. I was mad at Mike Devlin. And then I realized, you know what? It wasn't Mike Devlin. You'll get here, sir. I got a few years on you. You'll get here to where you'll realize, hey, I talked all that crap about Mike Devlin, and now look at him now. He's made it out. Shout out to him.
Joe DeLisandris, the Ravens guy, I guess is pretty good too, huh?
I don't know. Not familiar with it.
I mean, obviously the players make the guys better, but like, how do the players get better?
That's a fact.
Like the Bills fired their center, got a new guy, and then they turned into just an absolute, just like bulldozer on the ground. Like that takes some adjusting and some doing.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I just want to hire the O-line coach.
Guys, Mike Munchak hadn't coached in 4 years. It's not going to be Mike Munchak.
Everybody wants Mike Munchak and Gary Kubiak. That is not going to go away. We'll be senior citizens. This will be senior citizen SNL. DeMeco Ryans will have retired, and we will still be hearing the name Gary Kubiak and Mike Munchak. It will not go away.
Somebody else messaged me the other day and said, "What about Bruce Matthews?" So I was like, "What are we doing?"
All right. On that note, this has been the O-line coach part 1, because we're going to actually have a 40-part series on the O-line coach.
I'm going to have a 40-part series of my foot going up your ass.
So this is part 1 of 40. We got you covered with the O-line coach and everything else going on. Everything else going on with the Houston Texans. I'll always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
I'm going to block you because the Texans couldn't block anybody. You son of a bitch. Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.